Is meat eating a sin? This was a question that was posed to me by someone when I was giving a talk once at a public gathering. And the way in which the question was asked, it was loaded with a lot of emotion, and it seemed to be in that community where I was speaking that this was a very important topic, and the crowd that was listening went into uh, an amazing silence, eager to hear the answer. And it seems to be a sore point in certain cultures and communities, of course. Of course, in the Judeo-Christian and the Islamic cultures, and generally in the Western cultures, this is never a question and then never a consideration. But in the yoga and meditation field, there are, certain considerations and cultures, especially people who are adopting, the culture of yoga and meditation from the West. And this becomes a burning question sometimes. So I'll explore, the options and my opinions on this topic in this video. I would, in the interim, like to ask you a great favor. If you like the contents of my video, please also do not forget to like and subscribe, as well as share my videos to at least one or two of your friends or social media channels. This will greatly enhance the reach of my videos to be able to spread my message to more and more people. Even if it is just one more person, I would really appreciate it. For those who don't know me, I am Osman. I'm a bioenergy healer on a master level with telepathic healing capabilities and specializing in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses, amongst a host of other physiological, psychological, and even spiritual ailments. I'm also an advanced level yoga and meditation teacher, having been practicing this art for almost 50 years and teaching for 44 years. In that period, I've studied under various masters from different schools of thought as well as different cultures across the globe. And I gleaned out what I felt was the most important and effective aspects, creating my own protocols adapted to the 21st centuries, making the protocols simpler, faster, more effective, and time efficient. To that end, I now have students in over 100 countries, and my favorite protocol that I created was the 5-minute yoga and meditation program, which you can download for free from my website, yogawellness786.com, in exchange for your subscription to my blog, and where you can also get more information about my services. Please also remember my therapies are all natural based and not a replacement for medical treatment. So, when it comes to asking the question, is meat eating a sin? So, I would say my first line of approach to answering that is that, firstly, in life, in society, we are now an evolved society where things are not so simple like black and white, like yes or no, day or night. There's a lot of shades of gray and nuances, in giving an answer, because we're dealing with a civilization and multicultural society with all types of people and different countries and different circumstances and situations. So one cap cannot fit all. One type of lifestyle or protocol will not work for everyone. So the first consideration after giving that introduction to how I wish to approach the subject would be the medical considerations. So very often people, you cannot just force people into vegetarianism and saying it's a culture and you're born into this and it's a strictly religious thing, when medically it may be against that particular person's constitution, because not everyone is the same. And there are many instances where people on a purely vegetarian diet, their bodies are not uh, you know um, uh, running efficiently on that food alone. And there are some people who are fine on a purely vegetarian diet, but not everyone. Some people need to be on omnivore diet, and some people need to be on a purely carnivore diet. And it's not just these three categories. There's so many nuances of every style, right? So let's take, for example, a very simple example, like fiber. Fiber is important, right? Everyone needs to have some form of fiber, but there are some people who are sensitive to certain types of fiber. You just can't just take fiber across the board. Okay, vegetables have got a lot of fiber, or broccoli has got a lot of fiber, and just eat a lot of broccoli, and it's going to be good for you. The intestines, or the gut is sensitive, and it's scientifically found that this could certain fibers are harmful for some people, who have sensitivity to it. So similarly, there's thousands of nuances of choices of food. But when it comes to cultural situations, especially in certain communities where it is part of the culture that certain groups of people, born in certain families, are compelled, for the rest of their life to always be, strictly in a vegetarian, diet, because it is their requirement. So, I mean, we respect the different cultures, their traditions, because the traditions are not new traditions. These traditions are going back thousands of years, maybe much longer than that as well, right? So history traces back to 5,000 years and so forth, right? The Persian culture goes back 7,000 years, that we could predate, or date these things. So obviously the reality could be much greater, but what can be proven empirically is the Vedantic culture is between 4,500 years old. The Persian culture is 7,000 years. So these are very rich and amazing cultures. And not that any culture is strictly across the board saying, vegetarianism strictly. Let's take, for example, the Vedantic culture, right? So vegetarianism is not strictly for the whole population. It's only a certain class of people who have certain functions or certain roles to fulfill, and the requirement for them is to be strictly, vegetarian, because they need to be involved in certain rituals, that some of the rituals require strict observance to a vegetarian diet, right? Especially when they were reciting certain mantras, and those some mantras have strict rules and regulations, on the dietary protocols as well. But in the very same culture, the Vedantic culture, as an example, I'm not pointing out any culture, I'm just giving a hypothetical example, right? So they have other classes of people according to their duty. So the administrative class of people, or the ruling class of people, they were encouraged, into hunting and meat eating and so forth, because they needed to be more aggressive in nature, and they were fighting people. They were, in the army, and they needed, and this was different rules for them. And even within certain um, upper class, like the Brahmin class, not all were required to be vegetarian. There were certain sects where they were, depending on what type of worship was involved. For example, where there is worship of, for example, the goddess Kali, there they do animal sacrifices, right? But it is under very strict regulations, and also, alcohol in addition to meat. Alcohol is offered, and I think tobacco or weed also is, if I'm not mistaken, right, is offered, and partaking in those things is said to be holy, because it is something that was offered to the goddess, and it has a spiritual benefit and a value for those who partake in those type of meat, as compared to just having it, uh, without being, sacrificed, just having it anywhere else, randomly. So there's so much of nuances to this, and when we just say, is meat eating a sin? So, this comes from a very narrow minded approach, which, people, I would encourage them, to have a broader perspective, especially when you are in a family situation. So you maybe are following a culture, and very strictly, you believe that, you want to abstain from meat eating, and then you get married to someone, and that person has to follow the rules of your household. You make it clear that this is a vegetarian home, before marriage, and maybe that person, agreed in the beginning, but feels that she wants to have a burger, or have a favorite meat dish or something, or some fish, and she can't even mention it, she doesn't even evoke it, because she made the agreement before marriage, and she is internally craving for something, and she's not free to express her desire because of very strict rules in a family situation. That is number one. Number two, then you bring children into the world, and children have to go to school, and they are having friends who are, and 80, 90%, maybe 99% of them are not vegetarians, right? Maybe you and just a very handful of people in your school are vegetarian. Then they have a function, and they're giving meals to everyone. And of course, they're providing the vegetarian food, for the vegetarian children, in the school. But they feel a bit like odd, and they feel they don't understand, why they should be vegetarian, and why they are given, and they feel a little bit. I believe it affects the personality, and brings about psychological disturbances, when they have to do this. Then they very curious to taste the other food, and they taste it, and many of the children are innocent, they say, wow, this tastes amazing, but they afraid to go home and say to the parent that they went to school and then they ate the meat. The parent asked, "What did you eat?" Said, "No, no, they gave us vegetarian." And you just leave it, because if the child mentions that he tasted and liked the meat dishes, and thereafter he start, secretly having meat dishes, and afraid to tell the parent at home, and growing up, this is an unhealthy situation. I think it's in my opinion, this is not something good. It's something that I experienced in my childhood, where my household was a vegetarian home, and if we went visiting with my parents, and to where there's other people, and if we were caught even touching something, a meat dish or something, we were beaten to almost near to death, right? Almost to death, it felt like that. Obviously, retrospectively, I don't think the parents would kill us, but there was so much of and fear, so when we were not under the watchful eye of our parents, we used to eat and be so afraid eating. What if we get found out, and we feel nervous? What if someone tells the parent, and we're going to be beaten and so forth? This is a very unhealthy situation. Should a child grow up like that? Is this you imposing morals for that are created by adults for the adult world upon innocent children who are put in very difficult social circumstances? The community is there's no separate Brahmin community or vegetarian community. It's a blended community. There isn't a separate city only for vegetarians or vegans, right? So this needs to be considered, the people's own, freedom, and forcing upon what your morals are upon innocent children that are confronting very difficult situations and choices, and not understanding, this, and they are human, and they are children, and they are playful, right? They should be allowed some leverage. So if you want this thing, you must be free. So in bringing up my children, what I did was, whatever they wanted to eat or something, I said, no, you're free. And I never forced them into, my way of thinking or my religion. And always, like, I'm into yoga practice and so forth. If they wanted to practice with me, they practice. So I've got four children, right? Of, of the four children, the first two children were excited and wanted to practice yoga, but not always. They didn't want to come to yoga practice when I was teaching a class all the time. So then I didn't force them, because they wanted to stay at home, watch movies, watch Cartoon Network, and play PlayStation, or play games with children. And I never even brought up the topic. And myself being vegetarian most of my life, and then between vegan, I did attempt for long periods of time going into omnivore diet, because I didn't want to consider it, um, as a sin, and live, a balanced, to be able to understand all situations. So I didn't impose, and even when it came to religion as well, I taught them what I was practicing. And as they were growing, they were in their school. My children were going to a Christian school, and Christian. They had separate time for Christian services and prayer services and Bible studies and so forth was part of the curriculum. And we sent them there because it had an amazing curriculum at a very good price and a good, we found the best possible education that we could afford and could send them. And because we want the children to have the best possible education, right? So they learned the Christian religion as well in the school, and they used to ask me, is it wrong for them to pray? I said, no, it's not wrong. Must respect everything. If you want to pray, you pray. And my daughter, as I have the eldest daughter, and the second child is a son. My eldest daughter, she got inclined towards Christianity, and I'm of the Muslim faith. And I taught her everything, in my religion, but she preferred the Christian. And she said, is it a problem for me to? I said, no, not a problem, because you must go where your heart is. She said, no, my heart is, I'm used to this culture and I feel better, more comfortable with. I said, go ahead, right? And she had no problem to follow it. So similarly, coming with a question, is meat eating a sin? This is something you make it a choice that it's you feel it's a sin. We respect that, right? And you have your justifications, but don't impose these values upon every other human being, especially in your close circle, right? To your wife and your children and your siblings or your parents, whoever is under your control. Don't force it upon them. Be gentle. You believe strongly, and you can say, this is why I believe it, but also present that there are other viewpoints, because definitely the majority does not believe it, right? Majority of people on the planet is eating an omnivore diet. Very small minority is on a vegetarian or a vegan diet or specialized type of diet. Generally, everyone is having, omnivore diet, McDonald's, KFC, pizza, and all types of foods. We're not looking at, is this biscuits got eggs? Does this cake have eggs? And we must not eat it because it's got eggs in it and so forth. People be free, eat. Let them eat, as they want to. If they want to restrict themselves and follow what you feel, if it's this thing, let them make the choice when they're old enough to make the choice. And even if they make the choice, let them free to change the choice as well. you know and even your partner, I mean, I'm vegan vegetarian and my partners knew about it, but I said, no, what do you like to eat? And I used to buy everything that they wanted, right? So I used to buy chicken and meat products and everything for them, although myself not having it. And because that was my choice, right? And I never imposed it upon them. And there were some, even myself, that I don't have any alcohol, nor do I smoke any tobacco, but I had relationships where my partners were consuming alcohol and having smoking cigarettes as well. And beyond the regular limit. So some of them, there was one partner of mine, she used to smoke very heavily, maybe minimum 2 to 3 packs of cigarettes a day, right? And I used to make sure she has sufficient money, to be able to go out, have a coffee, and buy what she wants, buy a cigarettes. If she needed more money, needed anything special, I would give it as long as I'm able. Unfortunately, I was able to afford, right? And whatever they, because they are an adult, they're not my slave, right? And I can say, look, I feel, I it's not good for health, from a scientific point of view, that at least try to reduce it, because it's not good for your lungs and it's proven, but not make it the same nagging story every day, that is not good for health, not good for health. They're in the habit, they heard you the first time, and there's a way how to say it and live and let live, right? So coming back to this philosophy is, meat eating a sin. This is, I believe, personal choices, and it should not be forced upon other people, even if they are close knit, your marriage partner and your children, especially, right? Of course, with regard to the extended family and friends and associates, there doesn't you can't impose it on your associates and friends and so forth. But you find many people they're trying to force their friends and their network. You lose your friends if you do that, right? You will not have any friends anymore. The friends will be patient for a short while, and then they'll be uncomfortable to be around you. You keep mentioning, that what they are doing is something. It's a great sin, and how can they eat? They're eating, something that was living like them. It's also got a life. It had a heart, and it had children. It had a family, and you just tore it and you just chopped it, and it does, and carrying on going on that it's not going to work, right? It's not going to be good for you. So, from that perspective, is meat eating a sin? If you believe, very strongly, and you've got and there are, certain beliefs and faiths that, say it, and you're following that, I will say, touche, good for you, because you're following your belief, right? It's good to have conviction and belief in something. And if you are strongly, you feel strongly about it, this is your right and it's your freedom, right? We are not slaves. We're not in the olden days. People are free to make their choices, but don't impose those belief systems to other people. You can gently explain why you are doing it, but don't try to force other people into doing it. People are not, even your children are free. They are entrusted by circumstances to be under your guardianship and your support for a short time, right? And make that a pleasant time for them, not a drudgery that they want to escape and just get out of the homes at the first chance that they get, and then be, go into some type of psychosis where they go into extremes, into things in which they were restricted from, to try to make up the whole childhood once they are adults and they are free. You know, so that's my opinion on it. I don't know what you think about it. So I would appreciate you can give your comments in the comment section below, and this will be an interesting discussion. So take care of yourself always.